In Gungan culture, a life debt is a sacred tradition. When someone saves your life, you owe them service for the rest of your days. This act isn't just a matter of repayment. It's a deeply ingrained cultural duty that's seen as a way to honor the life you've been given. After Qui-Gon Jinn saves Jar Jar from certain death, Jar Jar feels compelled by his culture to serve the Jedi as a way of showing gratitude. To him, this life debt isn't just something he wants to do. It's something he must do, as dictated by his Gungan beliefs. But is this life debt, rooted in religious tradition, morally right? To answer that, we need to look at it through different moral lenses. Let's start with duty-based morality, also called deontological ethics. This approach says that an action is morally right if it follows rules or obligations. Since Jar Jar is following the rules of his culture, fulfilling his duty to serve Qui-Gon could be seen as morally good. He is acting in line with his society's values by repaying a life-saving act with service. But this also raises a question. Is every cultural practice automatically ethical just because it's tradition? While Jar Jar is following Gungan customs, not all cultural obligations are necessarily moral. So, we can't fully say this life debt is good just because it's part of his culture. Now, let's look at it through a consequences-based morality, also known as utilitarianism. This view focuses on whether actions bring about good results. Even though Jar Jar's life debt starts out as an obligation, the outcomes are undeniably positive. Jar Jar helps unite the Gungans and Naboo, a critical moment in the battle against the Trade Federation. From this angle, the life debt clearly benefits everyone, which makes it morally good, at least in terms of the outcomes. But there's another angle to consider: autonomy and free will. Was Jar Jar really choosing to serve Qui-Gon, or was he forced into it by his culture? Many would argue that true moral goodness comes from free choice, not just following tradition or rules. Jar Jar, however, doesn't seem forced. He's happy to accept the life debt, suggesting that he's acting out of a sense of personal duty, not resentment or coercion. So even though he's following tradition, it seems like he agrees with it, which makes his service more meaningful. This idea of repaying a life-saving act isn't unique to the Gungans. Many cultures throughout the galaxy, such as the Wookiees and Trandoshans, have practiced some form of life debt, where gratitude transforms into lifelong loyalty. As long as these obligations don't harm individuals or strip away their freedom, they're often seen as morally positive. In Jar Jar's case, the life debt doesn't lead to any harm. He willingly helps Qui-Gon, and his actions benefit not only himself, but the larger galaxy. So in this specific instance, the life debt seems morally justified. Now let's turn to Qui-Gon Jinn's role. Why did he claim Jar Jar's life debt? On the surface, it appears that Qui-Gon had two primary reasons for this decision. First, he was protecting Jar Jar from Gungan punishment. By invoking the life debt, Qui-Gon saved Jar Jar from further harm, a truly compassionate act that reflects the essence of a Jedi. Second, Qui-Gon needed practical help. He and Obi-Wan were on a critical mission, and Jar Jar, as a local, was the perfect guide to navigate the dangerous terrain of Naboo. Qui-Gon believed that having Jar Jar accompany them was essential for safely traveling through the planet's core to reach Theed. However, this raises significant ethical questions. While Qui-Gon's intentions seem noble, using the Force to persuade Boss Nass to allow Jar Jar to travel with them might blur ethical lines. Some might argue that Qui-Gon is using his Jedi abilities to manipulate the Gungan leader into making a decision that suits him. Qui-Gon's motivations become even clearer when he references the Gungan tradition of life debt. He explains that Jar Jar's service is not only a cultural duty but also vital for their mission. But was Qui-Gon's decision morally right? Or was he exploiting Jar Jar's cultural obligation for his own gain? Let's look at his intentions and the outcomes. Qui-Gon didn't seem to have any bad intentions. He used the life debt to protect Jar Jar and secure his help, and in the end, this helped the galaxy by defeating the Trade Federation. From this angle, his actions seem morally justified. But there's also the issue of power dynamics. Even though Qui-Gon doesn't mistreat Jar Jar, there's an undeniable imbalance in their relationship. However, Qui-Gon doesn't exploit Jar Jar for personal gain. He simply asks for Jar Jar's help where it's needed. Qui-Gon is known for following the living force, which means he focuses on what feels right in the moment, rather than strictly following rules. Invoking the life debt, while unconventional, allowed him to protect Jar Jar and avoid unnecessary conflict. His decision was pragmatic, but it wasn't malicious. In the end, Qui-Gon's decision to claim Jar Jar's life debt is a complex mix of pragmatism and ethical questions. While it might seem like he's using Jar Jar's cultural obligation for his mission, the outcomes are overwhelmingly positive. Jar Jar is protected, and a lasting alliance is formed. However, Qui-Gon's death raises important questions about the nature of the life debt. Was Jar Jar freed from this obligation when Qui-Gon passed away? On one hand, Gungan culture suggests that the life debt is tied to the life of the individual who saved him, which could mean Jar Jar is released from his duty. On the other hand, Jar Jar's relationship with Qui-Gon was based on respect and loyalty, allowing him the personal choice to decide how to honor that bond regardless of cultural expectations. Ultimately, while the life debt may have ceased with Qui-Gon's death, Jar Jar's autonomy suggests he could choose his own path moving forward. Although there are concerns about the power imbalance, Qui-Gon's actions align with his greater goal of promoting peace and protecting life. His use of the life debt may not be perfect, but it was the best choice in a difficult situation, making it a morally acceptable decision within the Star Wars universe.